Hi, good morning. I actually asked, Richard asked me what would I want, the traditional mic or the one that you put here. I said no. The baby boomer normally wants to hold on to the mic. Keep in mind what Dexter just showed you and explained to you, because that pretty much actually composes about 50% of what I'm going to in fact talk about. I am going to talk about strategic talent management, but what I'm going to say is something that has to be seen from the backdrop of my company, A.Magsaysay group of companies. This is a 68-year-old organization. It has 35 companies in so many diversified industries. We have the shipping, the manning, training, transport and logistics. We have travel. We have insurance brokerage. And training. Oh, by the way, we have a BPO also. And so, being the corporate HR officer of this diversified organization that is 68 years old, with a very low turnover rate, and has been year in and year out giving service awards to people who have been in the company for like 25 years, 30 years. Strategic talent management is actually not easy. As Dexter was talking about, you have the millennials coming in, and they're coming in into very traditional HR practices. So can you imagine 10 years in the strategic talent management? We are very cautious and we are very slow. But in any case, I'll take a chance. The profile, or the manner by which I am going to present this to you, is I am going to go back in time when my group and my generation hit the employment and the corporate world about 40 years ago. And what was HR then? No? It's very difficult to say something that is in your back. You know, when you talk about strategic talent management, actually I would take about at least a day, to at most 2 days to discuss this, because this is actually an entire system. Now, during my time when I came into the corporate world, it was called personnel administration. I don't know if some of you still remember. I'd like to believe I'm not the only baby boomer here. And in that, we had recruitment as a function, and recruitment had all the CVs that Dexter was showing earlier were almost like covered by all the CVs at that time. They were all in paper, and the only way that we were sourcing is through the back of the newspaper, no, diba? We will what do you call this? We would advertise as nicely as possible all the vacancies there, and before you know it, in about 3 days or so, all the CVs will actually drop on your lap, and there are plenty. We pay salaries, and the salaries were just, the normal. We did negotiated for them, and we paid them off. We administer benefits, but at that time, they were mostly state-initiated. SSS, Medicare pa dati. It's not even PhilHealth yet. Now, there were separations, but they were mostly like resignations, and these were the 70s, and so we had a lot also of retrenchments and redundancy. Economy was not so great then. Now, I'd call it a buyer's market. We were the buyer, and we dictated. We had the negotiating tools and the negotiating leverage. Now, 10 years after that, okay, I'm also struggling with this. Next slide, please. HR became personnel management. Recruitment was still the same, pretty much. We now had, we paid, salaries were still pretty much the same. Nothing fancy. We were already actually administering benefits, but there were already company-initiated benefits like leaves. Remember, leaves are not provided, except for the 5 days leave. The rest are not provided by the labor code. And retirement. At this point in time, there is no retirement law. This is about the 1980s. There were no retirement law, so the companies that would like to retain their employees actually initiated the retirement benefits. They wanted them to stay. Loyalty was the big thing. The baby boomers were professionals, and they were the ones who wanted to stay long in a particular organization. Next slide, please. Personnel management, the turnover is minimal, but it's mostly due to resignations and retrenchment or redundancy. Now, it is still the buyer's market. We still had leverage. The employers still had the leverage. About 10 years thereafter, next slide, please, it turned to be already human resource management. Now, the human resource management as a terminology actually has been running for approximately 20 years. So what I did, I divided it into two phases. Now, phase one was characterized by one thing that came in, sourcing. In the recruitment phase of getting in people, of talent acquisition, that whole thing was just recruitment. But at the start of the human resource management era, we actually had to take out the sourcing and make it special, and it was characterized by headhunters and executive search. We already ran to them. The newspapers are still there, by the way. Then we processed and hired. The salary packages are no longer how much do you want. It's more like what can you provide? What benefits are there? This is where now, on top of the retirement, the leaves, people were asking for health benefits. The health insurance came into the picture. And a few companies, big ones, actually provide for life insurance. And in phase one, our separations already were characterized not only by resignations, but by early retirement. You see, when people were given the option to retire, and this is such as optional retirement, they decided to retire. They decided to leave the companies that they had been in for about 10 to 15 years. So the early retirement already were coming in. And at this stage of human resource management, this shifted to a seller's market. The employers were now having a hard time because the people coming in to apply were actually negotiating for their pay. We are now in human resource management phase two. It has become more difficult. So sourcing characterized by social media already. A.Magsaysay already contracted Caliber, by the way. Now, we no longer have newspaper. I mean, really, my group. Sourcing, I'm taking care of the corporate HR, and our sourcing is no longer, we don't see newspapers. We have already contracted as many of the headhunters as we can get hold of, but we have Caliber, JobStreet, we go through LinkedIn, we use everything. By the way, I don't know them. It's my younger generation staff that actually knows these things. And then we process and we hire. But we realize that it is so much easier for us to get hold of people because they're there. I mean, you just click your computer, they're there. The salary package is no longer package. They have to see what you have to offer. Ang labanan, the war is really on the package, on how much it is that you have there. And, okay. The company-initiated benefits, leaves, retirement, cars, allowances, bonuses. We are now talking of 14th-month pay, 15-month pay, 16-month pay. Guaranteed 14 months. Otherwise, they will leave you. Promise. Okay. Now, the one thing that is very prominent in human resource management now is employee engagement. Employee engagement. As a matter of fact, I have one full-time officer there in front of me who is just in employee engagement. I was going to talk about it, but it's very difficult because when you talk about employee engagement, And in Magsaysay, that is a 60-year-old company, and we have 15% of our population who are still in the 60s. We have about another 15%, 15 to 20 Generation X. We have about an equivalent Generation Y. And right now, we have a surge already of millennials. It's not easy entertaining them. The retention program has to be very, very interesting. And it's something that would make them think about staying in the organization. Now, one classic example, and something that our president, Doris Magsaysay, is really proud of, and our people are really very happy with, was when we actually set up our child care center 3 years ago. It's the cost is on Magsaysay companies, and the kids, our generation have kids that are 1 year, like 1 year old to 5 years old, and are still in grade school. And when you have no one to leave them to, they're just very happy leaving their kids with us because it's being run by Montessori trained teachers, and it's really one of the engagement programs that we have. The employees, especially the younger ones, Generation Y and the millennials, are very happy with something that would actually relieve them of family burden, for the lack of any other terminology. Now one of the programs that we are looking into is corporate family responsibility. We are just into it. We would like very much to see what is there. Now, of course, this is a seller's market. This year, what we did is that we made use of the de minimis policy of the BIR, and we tried to see what it is there that we can make good use of. And of course, the very recent one that was introduced earlier was human capital management. Human capital management is already coming into the picture. I suppose in the next decade, it will really grow and mature. Now let's go back to the human resource management. Why strategic talent management? How can we manage in a company so old and actually has still a lot of baby boomers in it and growing older Generation X? See, the problem is, it is not possible for us to just look for people outside. We have too many competitors. If Dexter finds one person, I'm sure they're looking at the same person. I mean, like 10 other people are looking at the same person. So we cannot be relying a lot on bringing people in the organization. We should take care of the people in the organization. And that is the reason why we, 10 years ago, got ourselves into a program that is strategic talent management. It is actually an approach that spans the entire organization. Remember, I have like 1,000 people in corporate and 35 companies, different skills. It is entire organization, vertically, horizontally, requiring the expediency of placing them as soon as a position is vacant, and also if a position is created. Strategic talent management is highly attached to strategic planning. And strategic planning right now is no longer planning for 10 years. Strategy now is about planning for 5 years. I heard very recently even shorter. And that's the reason why we have to be constantly on our toes and be ready that if a position, we very seldom have a vacant position, but we create a lot of positions. So as soon as a position is created, we have somebody to take over. Now, how did it work? I'll just explain to you very, very simply. When we had this, we were concentrating a lot on succession, and at the 10 years ago, we were not ready with people who were assumed the executive level. So what we did, we had a program, very objective program with a lot of assessment. We actually have a very long-time partner in Behavioral Dynamics, Inc., who provided us with a tool for managerial assessment using our core competency at the level of the executive. what we did is we went through a process of identifying people who can take over in 5 years. And in our transport and logistics group, we were able to tap 3 people who were then at the department manager level, and 5 years thereafter, we were able to put them in the general management level by focusing on their training and their development. So that's only part of the succession planning that I'm talking about. So we were ready to put them there. Now, so why is there an HR issue? Part of this was already answered by Caliber. There's an aging population. The aging population is not a dying population, by the way. They're aging. By the time they get to 65, they have to retire based on our law, but you'll be surprised, they're around. And a good number of them are actually getting rehired as consultants, no? Because of the experience. And there is a new generation with a totally different personality that's coming in. Our retirement benefit, and Magsaysay has one of the best, is not attractive to them. I mean, these people, they don't like that. What do they do? For the millennials here, di ba, you like to travel. You like freedom. You don't like, it's no longer body clock. We have a more electronic type of timekeeping, but that even they don't like. They like to be free. They like applications at work that will only tell the boss where they are and that, in fact, they have done their jobs. Now, that is actually very difficult. So in our case, we have to be very, very creative and make sure that we are engaging all of them, including the fast-growing population of millennials. By now, we are like 25% na yata in Magsaysay. Now, next slide, please. There is a shift in global industry specialization. Let's put it this way. When our manning started in 1948, 1950 na lang, sige. They refuse, I mean 2 years. They refuse, the global, our company, the manning is actually an agency for global ship owners or ship management companies. So we give people to global shipping companies. They are not hiring their officers from the Philippines. They believe that their own Norwegian, Japanese officers are the best. So, sino kami? Nandun na sa oiler, mga kung sino-sino, but lower grade level. But now, because of the zero growth, population growth in the industry and in the region, and even in Japan, I think Japan has like negative growth pa yata. They are now in the Philippines. The Filipinos have proven that we are very good seafarers. So they are now looking at us also to provide them the officers. So in the recent 5 years, I was told that we are also hiring the captains and the chief engineers for the global shipping companies. So actually there is a shift already because of the population. I don't know what you call it. It's an aging population. We're shifting because the Asian region and the Philippines have a bigger number of younger people. And the Philippines, being an archipelago, we're pretty good at the sea. And we have a lot of shipping. We have actually a lot of maritime schools. And Magsaysay has also invested on this by having a training center. And soon enough, I don't know, we may have actually our schools because we have to train our officers. Also, there is a change in tenure. That's another issue that we have. When you say tenure, the baby boomers, as I told you earlier, we would be giving service awards to people who have been around for 20 years. As a matter of fact, our chairman is already 55 years in service. We have last year, 35 years, not? We gave somebody, 3 people, I think, 35 years. But you see, there are very few of this. People who would stay long. The younger generation are more bold. After 2 to 3 years, they leave. They look somewhere else. And we have to exert extra effort trying to retain them where they are. So even the company has to change. Almost on a yearly basis, we have to introduce something new, something different, something that will entertain them. Because the younger generation are not up to retirement. I was interviewing some people for the managerial and executive level who are already in their 40s and who have been moving around a lot. And one of the things very common that they tell me, I want to be in Magsaysay. It's time for me to settle down at about 40, 45 years old. Because this is the only time that they're settling down, in fact. No? Now, the changing of tenure affects everything that we have. You cannot sell to them the retirement benefit. Maybe you can sell to them the health benefit. They're going to ask for more. They're going to ask for allowances. What's the culture? How do you take care of your people, and so forth and so on. As a matter of fact, it has not been very easy for us, because even if I always have a philosophy that I have always been telling my staff: if you think that the person is good, somebody else thinks so. So your competition for the person is really big. Now, strategic talent management, let's go back to that particular phase. Expediency in placing qualified and ready personnel into positions are composed of two things. One, talent acquisition. And two, talent retention. Why? Next slide, please. Because in talent acquisition, there are two sources of talent. From inside, as ready as we are to give it to them, and from outside. The ones that, the reason why we're having Caliber and Job Street and all the link in with us. They actually go through exactly the same process. We profile them, we assess them, and we interview them. But the advantage of people coming from inside is actually you already know the person and you know the capability of the person. The talent coming from outside has one really major asset. He brings something new to the organization. So if you're planning for the CEOs and COOs here, your pace in terms and your type of sourcing will depend a lot on your pace. You have to know whether you have the skill. You cannot go into a new industry when the skill is not there. So you have to decide whether you're going to train a person inside or just get a person from outside. Okay, next slide, please. Now, in talent retention, remember that if you are coming from inside, you acquire the talent, and the person is coming from inside. That was, you acquired it before. If you want to retain a talent, you have so many to look at. Competitive compensation package, career development, engagement programs, performance management based on KPIs. Hindi sila pwede ng, the attendance of that person is good. No. It's results-oriented. Rewards and recognition, clear direction, and open communication. The millennials, the Gen Y and the millennials, you need to talk to them. You need to tell them, look, I need that proposal tomorrow. Don't tell them I need it immediately. It will not work. Now, there are 5 components to strategic talent management, at least in Magsaysay. We have a Gold Star program, and this is for the ExCom level, very, very high in the organization. We have a Silver Star program, the one that I described to you earlier, which is actually the promotion to the executive level. The Bronze Star program is actually a program wherein we monitor the career of a lot of people, almost all, and we make individual development plans for them. Really, we take a look at the performance management, we take a look at their background and find out, we get our assessments from BDI, and we see what are the strong points and the weak points, and we develop actually a developmental plan. We have a management trainee program that right now we are reassessing. But the most important for me is actually our recruitment focus. The philosophy is, if you put in trash, you will most probably get trash all the way. So we're very, very careful about the people we're bringing in. Our 2 concentration are the Silver Star program and the recruitment focus, because we tend to be getting ourselves into a lot of industries in the last 3 years. Now, what is the infrastructure requirement? A working management organization system is very important. In other words, please, your TO has to be very clear. You need a job classification system with accompanying job descriptions. You have to know what the job you are hiring for is about. And you have to job map so that it's very clear for you to come out with the career pathing. This is actually the requirement for a succession planning and effective recruitment. Important. Last slide. I believe this is my last slide. Make the processes as objective as possible. Meaning, use measurable tools, competency assessment tests, assessment center, KPI-based appraisal system, balance scorecard, 360. Wag yung, who do you think is good for that position? Wag. Don't do that. Because the person you're asking may be about 50 to 60 years old, and the basis of the choice is actually 50 to 60 years old. And use relevant measuring devices. Relevant meaning, right now we have online testing, we're using assessment analytics, we have BDI and assessment center. And use the same feedback mechanism both for coming in from the cold and for people you are promoting from inside, so that it's apple to apple. Okay? I was told it's time out, but I'm already done. Thank you very much. I hope you got something from it.